Spade back here with you, High Noon Leatherworks, for another leather adventure. And today we're going to do a project on this hat. And we're going to do a hat band. So we're going to use some leather, some silver, and we're going to use some spots and see what we can come up with. So come on in and let's get started. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and make us a hat band today. And I've got a piece of leather here that is, I'm going to say probably about 3 to 4 ounce, and it is about 7/16 wide. And then I cut it really long so that we can make sure we had plenty to go around. And I want to put my buckle on this side. So I'm going to pull it around and I'm going to leave about like about 3 inches on each side, and I can always trim some more of that off. So we'll go ahead and cut that and get the length. It looks like I had plenty of length. There's what I had left. So there's nothing worse than being short on a piece of leather. So when I cut that out, I just cut a super long piece. So the first thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and get my buckle on there. So I'm going to set this hat over here for a second. Get my poly board, and I'm going to work on this buckle. And what I've got is I've got a 3-piece, real nice silver. It comes as a package, and it's got the tip on it for the other end. It's got the holder put the excess through. So I just picked this up at Tandy Leather, so you can go online and pick these up. It's just kind of a fancy silver buckle, but it's small, so it's not going to be a problem to go on the hat. So what I want to do is I want to fold this over. I want to make sure I have enough room when I fold that over to go on the buckle, and then also make sure I have enough room for this piece. So I guess I can put it in this end. So when I put that on there, I want to make sure I have enough room as I put the point on the other end of the belt through there, that I have enough room for this also. And it looks like I have plenty of room there. So what I want to do is go ahead and put my hole for my buckle. So I've got a new punch, and I think this is a 3/32 punch. So I'm going to try it, see if it's going to be big enough. For it should be for that small a buckle. So we'll try that. Let's go ahead and see if that goes through that hole, which it does just fine. So there's that part of it. And then I want to put I'm just going to put a single silver rivet in there. So we'll punch our hole. Alright, so I'm going to get a 3/16 rivet and a cap here, and then slide this keeper on there. Then put it back in the buckle. And it is harder to work with smaller buckles for sure. So that's what it's going to look like when I get my rivet in there. So let's go ahead and do that. Hopefully we can get all that stuff out of the way. Yeah. Take my setter. So there it is with my buckle and my keeper, and then the silver rivet. Now, what I want to do is I want to test fit this now that I've got that end set up, and see if it's long enough. And remember, I cut 3 inches off, or cut that at 3 inches overlap, and I just folded over about 1.5 inches, so it works out pretty well that I've got that much left, so it looks like it's going to be perfect. I could always cut more off. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to get my end, my silver end on here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to lay that on there. And then I'm going to mark it. And the way I'm going to mark that is I'm going to mark it with an ink pen so I can, it'll show up. so I can actually see to cut it, because it doesn't come to an actual hard point, but it does curve down to a point. So I want that to be as close as possible to that shape. So I'm going to take just a hair more off. Because I want it to fit all the way down in there. Just like that. As deep as it can go into the point here. So let me take that, flip it over, and I'm going to push that down in there to make sure it's as far down and as flush to that as possible. Then I'm going to take these flat nose, needle nose pliers, or flat nose pliers, whatever you want to call them. And I'm going to start bending over those tabs. There's 4 tabs on here to hold that. That tip on. Then once I have those just barely bent over, I'm going to take I've got a little rod here I made out of a piece of steel. I think it came off of an old paper towel holder or something. I don't even remember exactly. And I'm going to put that on a piece of leather so I'm not damaging the decorative side. And then I'll just finish bending those tabs over. And I'll bend those over into that leather. On the back side. And then there's the other end, there's the tip. So that matches my other hardware on this end. So as I put this on the hat, I'll be able to pull that through and then set that buckle. Now, the next thing I need to do is go ahead and measure where my holes need to go. I'm going to put more than one hole. We'll see. I want this fairly snug. Not enough, obviously, to crush the hat, but enough to keep it on there nice and snug. So I'll take my stylus and I'm going to make my first hole at the very top of my buckle. That way when I put the hat band on, I can pull that snug. Then I'm just going to go ahead and put a couple more approximately a 1/2 inch apart. Just more for looks than anything, because I probably would never use those unless I add a lot of stuff to it that ends up making this band too tight. So it just depends on what adding the stuff to it's going to do. So I'll go ahead and I'll take the same punch, that 3/32 punch that I used to put the buckle on. And punch those 3 holes. And there they are. Then I can go ahead and test fit. I want to pull that through to that last hole. That's the one I measured it for. And it is a little snug, the width, but that's going to help keep it in place. Alright. And then I can go ahead and put that through my keeper. Pull that snug. And it's a felt hat, so it picks up everything. And then there's my finished band. And there's the silver on the side. So that's a nice band. It looks sharp, but we could probably add to that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my center here of the hat, and I'm just going to put a little mark right in the center using my stylus. And then I'm going to take this off. And the way I'm going to take it off is I'm just going to pop it off this time. Now I can take this apart much easier without squeezing the hat or damaging the hat. You look at all that black on black. Your eyes start playing tricks with you. So there's my center mark, and what I'm going to do, I take another piece of leather here. I'm going to lay that on there, and I am going to use some small spots, and they're silver, so they'll go with the buckle. And I'm going to go 3 round spots. Let me see how big these are. I'm going to go with 3 small round spots and then a silver diamond or square. And because of the size of those squares or diamonds, I'm going to have to put them on straight instead of a diamond shape, because they're just going to be too big to do that. They'll hang off. So I'm going to get my center mark, and I'm going to take a pair of curved needle nose to hang on to these spots. And I'm going to do those the same way. I'm going to run those prongs this way, and I think I'm going to go ahead and put the square in the center. That way I can run the round spots on each side of center. So all I'll do is hold that, to get it started. And what that does is that gives me a little indentation of where I could put my holes. I've tried driving those through before, and unless it's really thin leather, they tend to want to bend. So I like taking a stitching punch, make my marks, take my stitching punch and put a starter hole in there. Then I can put my spot back in and it'll go in that hole. And you can use, I like to use a punch to push down around the clamping part from the back side. That way I can flip it over and see if I'm all the way in, like so. Then I can take that same rod that I used to bend over the point on the buckle, or the non-buckle end, point it into the belt, and I can roll those over with that. So that's what it looks like when it's clamped. That's what it looks like on the front. Now what I can do is I could go ahead and do my round spots, and I want to do 3 on each side, and I want to do those, let's see, let's do those an inch apart from center. So I'll make a mark, an inch apart. So I've got my holes, or my spots, marked, and then all I need to do is go ahead and put my spot in the center, and I can mark those with my prongs. And then I can go ahead and pre-punch my holes. And then also that way I can make sure that I'm getting my holes punched in there straight, and my spots are going to fit straight. So once I get those pre-punched, I can come back with my round spots, push those in there pretty quickly. They're so small, they're hard to hold on to. Trying to figure out, that's why I was using the small needle nose pliers, made it easier. But you get big fingers like I do, it's kind of hard to maneuver those sometimes. And they're round, so they want to pop out of your hand. The larger ones aren't as hard to deal with. Alright, I gotta do the curved needle nose. I got the first two in. Alright, there we go. Now I can roll that over, use my punch, make sure they're seated well. From the back side, double check them. Then I can go ahead and roll it over and flatten out those tabs. That's one thing, the tabs do flatten easy, but again, that's what makes them so vulnerable when you're trying to punch them through if you don't make that pilot hole. So there's one side, there's my center, and there's 3 spots. I'm going to do the other 3 spots on the other side of center, and then I'll be right back. Alright, so I've got my spots all on. I'm going to go ahead and put this back in the first hole, because I know that's where we had it fitted before when we did our test fit. Pull that down. So there's what the buckle looks like. There's the spots. And now we're ready to fit it back on the hat. And there's the finished piece. So I've got my buckle over here, my spots on the front. So it looks pretty sharp. Now, if you wanted to, you could put a little stitch or something through here on each side. Make sure that stays on there nice and tight, nice and snug. However you want to secure it, you could secure that on there. But you could also just put a little tiny drip of glue on there if you want. Leather craft glue, and it would dry clear. So that's personal preference. So quick little project, not hard to do, but turned out great results. Get my thumb out of the way. And putting that square or diamond shaped spot right in the center just breaks that up a little bit. Alright, thanks for coming along. Thanks for hanging out with me for another video. If you haven't, please subscribe. Go check out some of my other videos. Turned out really awesome. If I can get out of the bright light. So, real happy with it. Now, instead of a plain black cowboy hat, I've got one with a nice hat band on it. So, check it out. Try it. You got a hat. You got somebody that's got a hat. Throw one together for them. Appreciate you coming along watching. Please go back and watch some of my other videos. You might enjoy them. So, as I always say, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.